Hello and welcome to our midweek conversation at First Baptist Sweetwater, where we strive to be the first responders of God's love. My name is Jerry Hendricks, and I'm here with my host and MVP, T. Hamilton. Hello, T.
Hello, Jerry.
Man, I noticed you got on your softball shirt today.
Yeah.
When does softball start?
Softball, we are going to have it this year. We are going to have a game in 2 Saturdays away, but not church league softball.
We're having a game in 2 weeks?
2 weeks. But I'm not going to tell much more about it because we're going to see that Sunday morning.
Well, you're also not telling much about it because we really don't know much about it.
That's true. That is true.
I'm excited about it. We talked about it in our staff meeting this morning. It sounded like a great idea, and mostly because there's hot dogs.
There are hot dogs.
I'm assuming there are hot dogs.
There will be hot dogs.
Okay. What about Cracker Jacks?
Oh, that's a great idea. If they're in season, yes.
I think Cracker Jacks are always in season.
I don't know. I just want to make sure. I don't want to say yes and then be like, that's seasonal.
Man, I'll tell you what. In some ways, the pandemic has ruined a lot of things, but in other ways, it's brought on some great fun.
Yes.
And we've discovered a few of those things. I believe this is going to be one of them.
This game?
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the most fun things we've done in a while.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Again, the excitement's only been building for a couple hours. I can't wait to see what
Maybe
I feel
that's
like tomorrow.
why I'm tired right now. I'm exhausted today.
Highly possible.
Oh, shoot, the day is young. But anyways, it's good to have some ideas and thoughts. We had a great planning time this morning, not just around that, but other things coming up on our worship calendar. This is the week that I have referred to since I've been here as meeting week.
Right.
We have all of our leadership meetings once a month on one night, and got that done last night. So it does make for a bit of a foggy day after.
Next day, yeah.
Yeah, so
a lot of stuff to process.
Yeah, but it was a good night, and it's always good to be with our leadership and share with them, just kind of what we sense is going on around here. Right. And the other thing is that was only the second time that we've met in person.
Right.
Since we started regathering. So that's good too. Even though we're kind of spread out, it's good to see faces and have good conversations.
I think that's why we're so excited about the softball game coming up, because it's nice to actually be able to do something and to have fun with each other and see each other.
And have a hot dog.
And have a hot dog with each other.
Anytime you can work a hot dog into a conversation or a fellowship thing, it's a good deal.
We do a really good job of that too.
Yeah. That's right. And probably we haven't talked in a while that you and I do like hot dogs.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, there you have it. It's out there now, and everyone knows. The world knows.
So if you think you make the best hot dogs in town, go ahead and give us a call and bring us a hot dog. We'll try it. We'll let you know how good you are at it.
That's right. Oh, mercy. Well, we're off to a good start. Sunday was another good day in the book of Philippians, chapter 3. And I shared with I think our deacons last night that it was so interesting since our producer Kelsey is no longer in studio or in office with us. She actually works remotely.
Right.
And we send her all the stuff, and she makes the magic happen for our podcast and YouTube and Facebook and so many other things. But since she's been gone, it's changed our schedule. And so we've moved up our recording time so that she can get it in a timely fashion and get that downloaded. And but it's really compressed my time.
Right.
Where my message that I have ready for Sunday is finished on Wednesday night. And so this was one of the weeks since I've been doing that where when I walked away, I just go, I'm not inspired by this.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with the chapter. The chapter was really good, but I had not captured a thought or something was missing. And I just had not, and that's not that unusual, I guess. But I guess it was the first time that it happened just on this more compressed schedule.
It's because like when you're doing a Bible study or sermon or something like that, and it's been kind of like building the whole time in your mind, when it's kind of clicked. But then there are those weeks where you just fight it, and it just never really settles in. And this is such a weird abstract conversation about that type of thing. but there is that moment where it clicks for you, and you're like, you see it clearly of what it should be.
Yeah.
So there's Wednesday nights when I go home and I tell Stacey, like, yeah, that wasn't a home run. See what I did there, home run?
Well, they were good one. MVP.
There's weeks
I hear
where
the chant. I hear it.
That's not me. And then there's weeks that you go home and you're like, that was exactly where I just, like, you knew that it wasn't you, it was God just speaking, and that was what needed to be said at the moment. And I know what you mean.
I will say this, and this is a compliment to you and other student ministers. It is easier to speak to a worship center of people than it is to students, probably. Fewer distractions for the most part. But I remember those challenging days.
Right.
But I think the word you used that says it best is click. It just hadn't clicked. And it was so funny because on Thursday morning, I'm rereading the passage, and then I saw something that I had not seen the previous day and a half. So, it is, chapter 3 is what I think, and we talked about this last week. It's really sort of that power chapter in the 4 chapters, with notable verses, the notable concept of what Paul considered gain and loss.
Right.
I guess in a different way than he had described it earlier, but a really good. A good and it was varied. I think that might have been where I got stuck, is that the total part of the story was really kind of spread out more over 3 themes than it was one common theme, and so it made the story, the narrative part of the message, a little bit more difficult to hone in on.
Yeah, I guess that's, and I'm not a preacher by any step of the imagination, but that's what kind of makes going through a book like Philippians in 4 Sundays difficult, because the natural breakup is 4 chapters, but those were put in much later. That wasn't put in while Paul was writing. Right. If he had written and put it numbered for us, it might have been more like 8 or 10.
Right, and as evidenced by how choppy it is with the paragraphs to the verses,
right,
and things like that. This is another one where it really kind of bleeds over into chapter 4 when it gets started. But this week, we step into the last chapter, and he does wrap it up, I guess, in his way of writing the letter and communicating to them, sending some, just kind of setting it up to say where he is in this process with them, and ready to kind of wrap it up and move on, but kind of struggled with how that flowed there. Didn't I?
That's all right.
I hope it gets better by Sunday. Because
I chased the rabbit in my mind. Writing a letter is a lost art. Now that we're saying it as a letter.
Right. Yeah.
They communicated. You wrote these letters to people that you cared about, and that's a lost art today. More people need to write letters, but that is totally free of charge. There's no cost for that.
If you've made it this far into the
Good job.
podcast and you picked up on that, I'd encourage you to write our MVP a note. And he would appreciate that.
Okay, now we've lost all train of thought.
So in there is your favorite passage, Philippians 4:13.
Can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. My favorite passage for people to abuse.
We talked about that. I mean, no, we mentioned it last week. So now I want to give you the opportunity to elaborate.
Okay.
I should have set you up on that, because when I read it again this morning, I had that thought. But I apologize for not setting you up prior to this. But
Paul talks about all these life situations he's had. He knew what it was being good, being bad, have money, not have money. He knew all these different situations in life, which we all experience at some point or another. And then he says, but I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That no matter your situation, Christ is there with you and carries you through that. You walk with Christ through that. But so often you see on Facebook someone posting, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and it doesn't apply to this idea of living with the situation you are in life, or where you are in life, and living in Christ in that moment. It applies to maybe more of a health and wealth, or that type of gospel that doesn't fit with this text, and it's not there. And so that's so frustrating, because my sarcasm tends to win over in this place. I'm like, walk out in front of a bus and see if you can stop the bus. You can't. There's physical laws in place.
And it is a reminder in how we read and study the Bible that you consider the context. And what he's getting at is the way that he has learned in his life in knowing Christ, which was the theme, is really the theme of this book, that he's learned to be content regardless of the situation.
Right.
And that there's nothing that's going to keep him or deter him from that pursuit of knowing Christ.
Right. And then again, it's one of those places where we already talked about chapters and verses were put in later. We'd do better if we just read the whole thing without chapters and verses in it, and you can't take it out of context.
Right. Well, there's another section in there that I made reference to Sunday. It's the section on in verses 4 through 6 about prayer and about anxiousness. You ever anxious?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I take things pretty well, but it doesn't mean that there's not those moments in my life where I do experience being anxious about something or someone or a situation. And so, yeah, but I'm pretty laid back for the most part. It's just that every once in a while that happens.
I like your personality, and obviously because we've been friends for a while, and I chose, get that, to come work with you over here at First Sweetwater.
There's a lot of people who are wondering why you would choose that.
Well, but people ask me, how is it working with Teak? Because they know that we're friends and they would know you. And as I describe that to them, I often say Teak is a grinder, that he just gets things done, that he's not emotionally attached to a list or a task or whatever, that it's always kind of an even keel, I think is the way we say it sometimes. So I don't picture you as an anxious person because of just your...
Not very often.
Yeah, you're just kind of calm nature. I'm a very anxious person.
Which is surprising.
For real?
Yeah, I mean, you'll talk about things, and maybe it's just the way I receive things when I hear them. I don't pay attention to emotions. But yeah, I mean, I know you're a thinker. Like I think you're always thinking about stuff, but not necessarily anxious about it.
Yeah, there's an anxiousness. I struggle with it.
Well, that's not good because I usually put my faith in you that you're going to fix the problem.
So the reason I've memorized this verse is because I'm an anxious person. And I think I get into a sense where I can control or manipulate the circumstances and things would change. I have become a more calm as I've gotten older, and I don't know if that happens for most people in faith or not, or even apart from faith. I don't know if that's just an age thing, having more experiences, but the headache I have right now is because of the anxiousness I have about this afternoon. So anyways, a
literal headache.
Yeah, a literal headache. But I need to clarify for our church, I guess, because, and maybe I'll do this Sunday, because I don't often speak to people in the crowd because it alienates so many others.
Right.
But I know that one of my friends in our church is David Welch, and he had gone through a lot before I came here with some physical things. But I know that that's one of his favorite verses. In fact, it may be his favorite verse.
Right.
And but Sunday we were kind of preempted into those verses just through something that we experienced in a time of prayer for our church. I think if you were there, or whether or not you were there, I guess, I think it was a reminder for us of several things, and all of us that have talked about it have come away with different thoughts in regard to that special moment we had in worship. But for me, it was just a reminder that we come to worship on Sundays with stuff.
Right.
And sometimes it's not, we don't need to call attention to it. I mean, we still have worship, but Sunday was one of those mornings where it felt like it was important to acknowledge an anxiousness, and then have prayer for people who had something that they were anxious about. And we had a number of folks that stood. I shared with our staff and leadership. I didn't look around once I kind of brought us to a time of prayer and Jeff Lay started praying for us. I really just lowered my head and closed my eyes. But I did see some folks immediately stand up. Yep. So For one thing, there was no question that there's an anxiousness that we felt in the room on Sunday, or that people are feeling in their life, that we were able to recognize and encourage and pray for people. But it also reminded us that that sometimes we need to stop.
Yeah.
And but a very special time for us in worship on Sunday.
A lot of Sunday mornings in youth, or even Wednesday nights, in a prayer I'll say something to the effect of, God, help us to put everything else aside for that's happened this week. Because even if you're not anxious about it, you've still got so much stuff running through your head that it can detract from you hearing God.
Right.
So just that idea of kind of clearing that. And I think that was one of those moments Sunday that, like you said, you don't want to do it every Sunday, but that was one of those moments that allowed people to kind of take that sigh of relief of, okay, God's got this. I'm here to worship God who hasn't gotten up off his throne because nothing surprised him.
Right.
And so they're able to just kind of take that breath. And there is a lot to be anxious about right now, and I get that.
Right. And it's, I think a lot of times when I catch myself in that anxiousness, I exhale.
Right.
And that word, that thought, that experience kind of helps me to regain a center.
Right.
And but anyways, it was a very good day for us to be together, to worship together, and we look forward to the next Sundays. We started talking about that this morning, and it is fun to anticipate a time that we're more familiar with,
right.
like Advent,
right.
and there's not going to be a lot that steals that joy from us in being able to worship and to think about the birth of Jesus. But we got a lot of things coming up. There's still some time in between that,
yeah.
but sometimes we're guilty of jumping ahead to those special times that we enjoy.
I am especially guilty of that.
Well,
I really am.
Well, that's one reason the partnership grows even deeper there. But anyways, look forward to being a part of your worship on Sunday. I hope that you'll join us. We'll be talking about Philippians chapter 4 for live worship at 10:30, or you can join us on the live stream. We'll see you Sunday.
See you then.